Hello everybody, my name is True Demon and I'm the Devil's Stockbroker. So, BBIG had some news today and I have its chart right here in front of me, so I was going to do some quick technical analysis to let everybody know where we currently stand with Vinco Ventures stock price. So, Vinco Ventures, as you guys may recall, has been trading in a very large descending wedge pattern that's been forming since January of this year. It's a very large pattern that we've been watching for a long time. We had one attempted breakout that ended up spiking through and then gapping back down into this wedge on one daily chart, and unfortunately we have been trading pretty much sideways since then. However, we have begun to test the outside of this descending wedge one more time, and most recently we've had a very narrow close just below the outer bound of this descending wedge. The large one that concludes with the green wedge that I showed you earlier, we just closed barely above and then flagged down to create this bullish flag on Vinco Ventures stock. This is actually not just any bull flag, but a bullish pennant. As you can see on the 15-minute chart, we've got a little bit more of a solid body floor on each of these candles here below it. So the next thing to watch for is for BBIG after finishing retesting this descending wedge, provided that we do not see a candle re-enter into here and close inside of the wedge, we're likely to see continued consolidation going down along the outside of it before retesting this resistance and then breaking out again. As I said, we've been watching this for a long time. It's been a long time coming. But we seem to finally beginning to get some strength in the stock. We've got the MACD, which is currently in consolidation on the 15-minute, and on the 1-hour chart, we are curling down. So we are waiting for the slow line to come up to meet the fast, and hopefully what we will see is that the MACD will turn around and bounce as the stock gets more strength, breaking out of each level of resistance. An additional confluence that gives us some confidence in this trade is that while we've been creating sustained bottoms here on the chart, you can see that we've actually formed a triple bottom with a candle here, here, and here, and started to rise up outside of this descending wedge ever since. Looking at the RSI, you can see that these bottoms coincide with the moving average of the RSI. Every time we've touched this moving average on the RSI, the price is lifted, which is a good sign that we have a very strong area of support at this level below 90 cents that the price just doesn't want to break down below. This will serve as a good foundation for the price to move off of, provided that we continue this consolidation phase until we find some new buying strength, which, thanks to a new news release from Vinco Ventures, now we have a catalyst. Vinco Ventures has announced that Ross Miller, who you may remember was appointed by the courts during the litigation against between Vinco and Zash Global Media, has now taken a permanent seat as the Chief Executive Officer of Vinco Ventures, and the settlement of litigation has been announced. Additionally, they're announcing that Gabe Hunterton is joining the team as the president of Vinco. Lisa King and Rod Vanderbilt will remain on the board of directors. Brian Hart and Jesse Law will join the board as independent directors. So I'm going to read through this filing really quickly just to give you guys the highlights, and then we'll conclude. So the big news, of course, as I mentioned, Ross Miller is taking his seat as CEO. We're also adding Gabe Hunterton as the president of Vinco. Lisa and Rod are going to be sticking with us, and there are this will fill the 2 of 3 vacant director seats following the resignations of John Colucci, Michael DeStasio, and Elliot Goldstein, who are now all 3 being removed. We still have one former member of the board, Philip Jones, who was the acting CFO, the Chief Financial Officer of Vinco. He has resigned from his position, and he will only be staying with Vinco and the Zash team insofar as to assist with reconciling all of the financial information until it's been turned over to a new financial officer. And I want to quote this message from CEO Ross Miller that he left with this latest news release. With the settlement agreement and litigation behind us, Vinco's leadership team is aggressively working together towards the completion of our quarterly filings, as well as working closely with the ZASH and ZVV management teams to work towards completion of the combination of these companies as soon as possible. We are laser focused on providing transparency and creating value for our shareholders, as well as upcoming business initiatives. We have the platforms, technologies, and the human capital in place. Now it's time to execute. Rod Vanderbilt followed up with, quote, "It is my great pleasure to welcome Ross, Gabe, Jesse, and Brian to the Vinco team, each bringing extensive experience and expertise that will aid the company's execution as well as its growth. The Vinco team and board are excited to get back to business and look ahead to Vinco's next chapter." So, there are some things to tighten up, and we've still got a lot of information to unpack. We currently don't have a whole lot of information on these new individuals who are taking board seats and assisting with the ongoing merger between ZASH and Vinco Ventures, but we're now very certain, thanks to this announcement from, or this statement rather, from CEO Ross Miller, that now there is going to be a combination of the companies, and it's going to happen very soon. This merger is what we've all been waiting on for a long time, and it's basically the catalyst for everything that we've been looking forward to in Vinco Ventures' future. Once this merger completes, and it will be led by a valuation of the combined company's equity value, we are very certain to see a new surge in price for BBIG, because we all have seen how far it's been dragged down, and we all know that the value of these two companies combined just in the IP alone is far greater than what it is currently trading at in the market. Let's take a look at the Ortex data on BBIG. So one of the biggest things that the entire community has been talking about, chanting about, is a squeeze in BBIG, and I wanted to highlight the reasons why this is being so broadly talked about. BBIG is absolutely a squeeze candidate. If you recall from back in August of 2021, BBIG had an enormous amount of short interest that exploded the price after shorts got caught in a gamma and short squeeze combined, seeing the price skyrocketing from a modest $2.86 all the way up to a height of almost $12 on September the 8th. So across 2 weeks of trading, BBIG's price absolutely annihilated shorts starting from August 20th all the way through the first week of September. And of course there's been this slow bleed off, but this entire time short interest has only been building. So this is evidence of shorts doubling down on their positions as BBIG went through dilution after dilution, and then delays and delays and delays. Things that were killing the thesis that BBIG was going to be a successful company in the long term. And if you notice, the average age of these loans have been growing along with the amount of short interest in the stock. Now, it's had some days where shorts would rapidly get out of their old positions and then roll into new short positions on a rotating basis. But consistently, the utilization of BBIG stock has remained at 100% utilization ever since, even before this short squeeze, only seeing minor drops in utilization on single daily candles at a time. And it's never really dropped below 90% utilization for anything longer than a day or two. This means that shorts are consistently staying in their positions, even though there are a handful that are day trading this to the downside. I've also added the security lending volume, which you can see in this bar chart, showing areas where there was huge spikes in short volume going into BBIG on a daily basis. And consistently it occurs during major downtrends, or the beginning of major downtrends in BBIG stock, and that after it begins to dry up, we see huge upswings. So as the volume declines, suddenly we see a big surge in BBIG's price, and then it peters out, and then the shorts continue jumping in and piling on the stock, slowly dragging the price down lower and lower. What this is evidence of to me is that there's big institutions that are betting on BBIG going further down trying to either crush the company in order to just destroy its source of funding, or they're trying to get it down low enough that they can accumulate a massive position and bleed retail out of their own long positions so that they can take control of the company. There's several competitors to BBIG, namely ByteDance Inc., which owns TikTok. This company serves as a big competitor, and these guys are butting heads together. The market maker for BBIG, Susquehanna, also happens to own a major stake in ByteDance, which puts them in conflict of interest, something that the SEC and FINRA still have yet to acknowledge, despite dozens and dozens of whistleblower reports that have been unanswered for months. Now, after all of this time, here we sit with 27.5% of the total stock on loan, with 20% of it sold short. That amounts to around 40 million shares sold short, and the price hovering right around $1, waiting to explode into the stratosphere. If we take a look at the short exempt data, this is all the short volume per FINRA that shows us that BBIG has been specifically being targeted by market makers, with more than 5 and 6 and 7% at times of the total short volume being sold short exempt, meaning that a market maker is fulfilling buying orders, and this is creating price suppression, because if they are able to get the price back down below the levels that the transaction took place at, then they can cover those short exempt shares, which effectively they're shorts that have never been located. For the most part, they're naked shorts. And as long as market makers are able to keep perpetuating this cycle of just short exempting a stock, dragging the price down, then covering, we're not going to make any traction, because they're able to pull these things out of thin air until the price surges past their initial cost average and forces them to cover at a loss. And unless they start taking sustained losses over time, then we're not really going to be making any progress. We made a little bit of headway in the last couple of days, seeing that BBIG's price over the last week was able to recover from 90 cents all the way back up to around $1. But we still need to have this consistent momentum, and that comes only with share buying. However, there's a few other things that we can take a look at that should provide some catalyst and some incentive for shorts and market makers to cover their positions a little bit quicker and put more pressure on them as the weeks continue and BBIG begins to perform. For starters, we're seeing consistent 13 and 48 EMA crossovers on BBIG's chart, and this consolidation, this coiling effect that's been going on for the last week, is a sign of strength for the stock. So that's one count in our favor. The second point in our favor is the increased volatility of short exempts, showing massive spikes and then drops in short exempt volume over total volume on a daily basis. So as market makers are shifting in and out of these positions, trying to keep up with the market and trying to fulfill orders, it creates more and more volatility and increases the difficulty for them to cover their positions. So this is another point in our favor. If we continue to see the price surging while the short exempt volume is increasing higher and higher, meaning that more shares are being naked shorted and sold short exempt as the price is going up, that affords market makers very little time or opportunity to cover at a gain and forces them to cover at a loss as their failures to deliver come due. This occurs every T plus 6 days or 6 trading days after a short exempt occurs. So as long as the price is moving up on a 6-day average, then this means that market makers are consistently taking losses. And that's why we need to see this momentum move on a consistent basis. Now here's the real catalyst that I wanted to get to. This is a table that's showing the open interest on call options as a percentage of the free float for BBIG. Down here you have the expirations, and here you have the strike prices on the y-axis. Now this week we've got a lot of strikes we've got a lot of options at $1 and $1.50 that are coming due for expiration this week all the way through the 21st of October. There's been a lot of interest in these call options building up for the last several months, and now the price has been consolidating in this area pretty consistently. So if we do manage to see a run in BBIG stock, this would qualify as a gamma ramp. It's not a very large one, but it's enough to create some momentum and start putting some shares in the hands of retailers. And that will require market makers to, at least to a degree, start covering some of the naked call options that they have likely sold. Because although you may not be aware of this, market makers make most of their money selling options into the market. And a lot of those options are sold naked until it comes time for them to be delivered, meaning assigned. And if those options are in the money, then they have to cover at a loss. So market makers are constantly shuffling around their positions. And the more of these that go in the money, the more difficult it will be for them to cover at a loss, especially if that momentum happens very quickly. So one of the big things that we need to look for from the Vinco Ventures team, and I really am speaking to the Vinco team here, you guys need to really time your news releases around this stuff. The options chain around here is critical, absolutely critical. And I don't think that many executives pay attention to this, because what you do not realize is that this is who you're fighting against. You're fighting against the stock market. You're fighting against market makers who are trying to keep your price suppressed and held down in stable ranges where they're able to make profit, keeping the price moving and zigzagging between a few cents. You want your stock to go up, you need to time your news releases before these expire. If you were to wait until after these expire and you release your news a week too late, guess what? You just murdered a ton of momentum that you could have been using to put your stock on the front of news articles and start causing options interest to swell. If you do not consider these things, then you are selling yourselves short and you are wasting opportunities that could be used to drive BBIG's stock to new heights and give you a greater financial advantage in the future. Contrast this with the put options. These are options that are betting against BBIG stock. You can see that these dates are also extremely critical. The vast majority of the puts that are open against BBIG are expiring this month, mainly around October 21st. So if news hits soon and quickly that BBIG is going to perform, that the valuation is coming, that the stock is going to go up, that the company is going to succeed, that they have new acquisitions ahead of them, all of this good news will put all of these bearish bets out of the money, wasting all of the shorts' time and cash that they were using to drag the stock price down. And if that wasn't enough to drive the point home, pay attention to this chart. This is a gamma ramp. What you have here on the vertical or the y-axis is the percentage of the float that would be in the money at a certain strike price down here on the x-axis. If BBIG's stock were to go to $2 or above, then more than 11% of your total float trading in the market would be in the money, meaning that 11% of that stock would need to be covered and delivered by anyone holding open call options that they had sold into the market, i.e. market makers, i.e. bears, shorts, people that are betting on the company failing. Anyone who is betting on the company failing does not want to see the price get to $2. And all of this is centered around the month of October. If you go out all the way to January, this explodes to a monumental 30%. So if BBIG's stock skyrockets past $2 and $3, you will see more than 30% of BBIG's stock in the money on the call options chain. And this chain is only growing with time, especially for the months of January. This month is going to be absolutely critical for BBIG. So I challenge the Vinco team to step on the pedal and keep the momentum going. Speak to your investors, talk to us, and start putting out the news of what your expectations are and what the roadmap is for success. Because right now, we have hardly heard anything except that you finally ended your court case. I challenge the Vinco team to keep up the momentum and keep talking to us. We need to know what your plan is. We need to know what the roadmap is. What is your plan for success? And how long is it going to take to get us there? And that's what we need to see in order to see this momentum realized, so that this isn't just potential, it's actualized, realized gains. To conclude with just a few more things to watch out for BBIG, we've established this new level of resistance right here at around $1.03. Provided that BBIG is able to break this level, then we are like to see BBIG surge past 105. This is going to be the biggest zone of resistance for BBIG to get through before it's able to head to a new price level that is estimated to come up to between $1.12 and $1.25. So somewhere in this level is where we are likely to see our next level of consolidation before moving on from there. At the moment, this is probably the best price that we're going to see BBIG trading at for a while as new news and information comes out from the ZASH team and the Vinco team going forward. This process of continuously putting out new news and more bullish updates as time goes on is likely to continue, so we can expect a lot more communication from their team going forward. Meanwhile, I'll be keeping my ear to the ground and continuously working hard to make sure that all the latest research on the board of directors team and the individuals that are now a part of the joint team of ZASH Global Media and Vinco Ventures, so that we are sure that we're in the right hands and that we make sure that we fully understand their expertise and can establish a new timeline to execution for the merger. That's going to be it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Until then, have a hell of a time in the markets.